Hokage I'll become stronger when I'm fishing. Chapter 161-180. Chapter 161. Facing the Four Emperors, Kaido. It's a dangerous place indeed. Yagami Kangdu stood aside, and when he saw that the silver-backed giant ape was going to continue to attack Nina, he threw a backhand punch. Boom! The silver-backed giant ape sensed the danger, and the huge fist in the roar smashed at Yagami Kangdu. The two disproportionate fists collided, and the silver-backed giant ape was instantly hit hard, and its huge body flew backwards, breaking a large number of trees in a row, and finally stopped. It sprayed blood in its mouth, and humanized fear appeared in its huge pupils. Panic glanced at Yagami Kangdu, fled into the depths of the forest, and disappeared. It didn't die. Yagami Kangdu withdrew his fist, and a strange color flashed in his eyes. He didn't use all his strength in the punch just now, but he also used 2 or 3 points of strength. With his current strength, even using 2 or 3 points is already extremely terrifying, but the giant ape survived. There are indeed many incomprehensible creatures in this world. During the 2 years of Luffy's training, there are so-called giant beasts that need to be driven in 4th gear to defeat. It seems that this is just a similar existence. No wonder the Four Emperors are not interested in this island. Nina looked away. With the company of Yagami Kangdu, she is not afraid of encountering any danger, but the power of this silver-backed giant ape is indeed a little astonishing. Of course. Today's Yagami Kangdu, the power has been ranked at the top of the sea. A mere giant beast is nothing. The two continued their journey into the depths of the forest. While constantly checking the ruins, Nina gradually came across some clues. However, the clues have not been able to be combined into effective clues. In desperation, the two crossed the jungle and returned to the boat. After a day of rest, Yagami Soto accompanied Nina into the jungle again, looking for more relics of Kaduka. A total of 3 days of exploration, almost the entire island was explored, the 4th day. At the end of the coastline, a dark shadow appeared. That is a ship. Immediately after the shadow, there was the second shadow, the third shadow. A fleet was formed, heading towards Kaduka Island. There is no earth-shattering momentum, but just sailing to this island brings a heart-pounding impression. The clear sky was gradually obscured by dark clouds. Sugar jumped from the mast, and Shiryu of the Rain stepped out of the cabin. It's finally here. Everyone looked at the approaching fleet, and someone murmured in a low voice, their eyes flashing sharply. That fleet came from the Four Emperors. Beasts. Pirates. Quick, look, it's the ship of the beast pirates. A special hot air balloon is hovering in the sky above the sea 1,000 meters away from Kaduka Island, observing the direction of Kaduka Island from a distance. There are 3 people in the hot air balloon. One of them, holding the binoculars at the moment, looked nervously and excitedly at the approaching ship of the beast pirates. Big news. This time it's the scoop big news. Morgans put down the telescope, and his eyes showed unstoppable excitement, and said, "A little closer, if you take a picture at this distance, it will not be clear enough." "No way, Lord Morgans, they will find you if you get closer." The 2 subordinates stood behind Morgans, and when they heard Morgans' order, they all wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads and spoke out one after another to discourage them. If it was discovered by the 100 Beast Pirates or the Yagami Pirates, it would be fine if the other party ignored it. Once they ignore it, it will be a disaster for them. That's the 5 emperors after all. That's true, just get a little closer, just a little bit. Morgans pondered for a while, he and the department were good. There is also a little connection with Kaido, and I have only met once with the Yagami Pirates. 2 subordinates gritted their teeth, and finally managed to control the hot air balloon to get a little closer, and at this time, the ship of the beast pirates had already approached Kaduka Island. The sky was full of dark clouds. On the shore of Kaduka Island, Yagami Kanto stands on a rock with calm eyes. Let the sea water and rolling waves crash on the reef, of course. Behind him, Shiryu of the Rain and the others all had cold eyes, full of murderous intent. Finally, as the ship of the 100 Beasts pirates approached, Yagami Kingta and the others could clearly see the tall figure standing at the front of the deck on the main ship in the center. He stood there with a muscle on his face. He didn't speak, but he already had an amazing power. As the ship approached, the pressure became stronger and stronger. The 4 emperors, Kaido of the Beasts, on the other 3 ships, at the front of the decks stood the senior officers of the Beasts pirates. They are the 3 great disasters that shook the New World. The momentum is not inferior to Shiryu of the Rain and others. Master Kaido, the people of Yagami Kingdo seem to be gathering on the shore. A pirate from the Beast Pirates stood next to Kaido, observing the situation on the coast and reporting to Kaido in a low voice. There was no timid expression on his face. Even though the 8 gods pirates are famous all over the world, when will they be afraid of the Beast Pirates? Even the Whitebeard pirates, Kaido has singled out more than once. Kaido did not respond to his subordinates. At this moment his eyes converged, and fell on the Yagami Kingdo on the shore. Yagami Sudo did the same, looking at Kaido from a distance. Kaido is the old generation of emperors in the New World, while Yagami Kingta is the pinnacle of the new era. The battle between the two represents the collision between the old 4 emperors and the new 5 emperors. The fleet approached the coast and began to slow down. The beast Kaido stared at the Yagami Kingdo, and the momentum of the Yagami Kingdo was far away. Noticing that Yagami Kingdo had not changed, and that he didn't feel the slightest slump in front of him, he slowly opened his mouth and said, "Boy Yagami, you shouldn't have forgotten what you said on Icefield Island." "Of course I remember." The 8 gods Kingdo spoke calmly, looked at Kaido the beasts calmly, and said, "Just now I want to learn how the beasts pirates can't be provoke." Hearing Yagami Kingta's words, Kaido was not angry, but grinned slightly, revealing a rough smile. A terrifying aura suddenly burst out, pressing on Yagami Kingdo. Domineering and domineering. For Kaido, what he hates most is nonsense. Since Yagami Kingdo once provoked the 100 Beast Pirates, it will end this matter with a war. It's that simple. Rude. Under Kaido's domineering arrogance, the clouds in the sky seemed to be pulled and rolled frantically. For a time, it seemed as if the sky and the earth were torn apart, and the terrifying pressure swept out. Boom! Yagami Kingdo's eyes are calm and sharp, staring at Kaido the beast. Almost at the same time, Yagami Kingdo also inspired his aura. The 8th-door Dunjia formation was fully opened, the red steam erupted, the power swept over, and collided with Kaido. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 162. The prelude to the war is about to start. Crackle. 2 top-level auras suddenly collided on the sea. An instant, it seemed as if countless black thunderbolts had exploded, interweaving and flashing in the void. Although the 2 of them didn't make a move, it was just a domineering collision, and a might that shook the sky and the earth burst out. The sea, which was originally a rolling wave, set off a huge wave that shook the sky. Whoosh! In the next instant, Yagami Kingdo made a bold move. He took a whole step forward, 1 foot in the void. The tumbling waves solidified in an instant, and then rolled back violently. Shock wave of the Shishiang kicked on the sea surface, covering the entire sea surface for thousands of meters in front of it, and the entire sea roared wildly for a while. The huge waves that were set off sent the ship carrying the beast pirates flying into the sky. What's the matter? Oops, I'm going into the sea. The many pirates of the 100 Beasts pirates were all unstable in an instant. As the hull flew into the sky, they all showed horror, and they were about to be swept into it by the sea. And almost at this moment, Kaido's face sank. Figure suddenly flickered, smashing through the waves abruptly, carrying an unstoppable force, rushing towards Yagami Kingdo. It made Kaido very angry that Yagami Kingdo dared to do it first. The huge body evoked a terrifyingly armed domineering, condensed on his fist. Surpasses all the characters Yagami Soto has seen so far, in terms of physical strength and domineering armament. But in the face of Kaido's punch, Yagami Soto didn't show the slightest hint of fear. With the 8 gates Dunjia formation fully opened, he was completely worthy of any melee attack. Under the tense gazes of countless people, the fists of Kaido and Yagami Kangdu collided on the coast. Boom! The disproportionate size of the fist, at the moment when it touched, there was no situation where either side flew out. The nearby void seemed to be stagnant for a moment. Immediately after, under the shocked gazes of countless people, the air swept frantically centered on the place where the fists of Yagami Soto and Kaido collided. The sea surface is constantly turbulent, and the stormy waves are formed in an instant. The reef directly below the two of them shattered almost instantly under the aftermath. The swept-out ripples swayed on the coast, and the power was so powerful that the entire coastline collapsed. The waves were rolling. A strong man from the 100 Beast Pirates took action, and the ship fell back into the sea. However, at this time, most of the people's attention was focused on Kangdo and by Beast Kaido. Blocked Lord Kaido's attack. So strong, as expected of the existence of the generals who dared to repel the headquarters of the world government. Many pirates from the 100 Beasts Pirates took a deep breath while they were shocked when they watched the screen. Since Yagami Kanto can block Kaido, it means that what they have to face will never be an easy battle. The reckless fight between Yagami Kangta and Kaido is still here. Continue. This blow is not only a competition of pure strength, but also a fierce collision between the tyrannical Domineering and the Baman Dunjia formation. The other side. Shiryu of the Rain was holding a cigar and holding the hilt of the second-generation Kidaru in his right hand. After his eyes stayed on Yagami Kanto and Kaido for a second, they shifted to the ship of the 100 Beast Pirates. The captain has already started. I can't be idle. In fact, Shiryu of Rain couldn't hold back at all. Since Yagami Kangta and Kaido have already fought, what else does he need to wait for? Almost in an instant, Shiryu of the Rain suddenly came into the air. The second-generation Goosh was slowly pulled out by him. A scorching flame suddenly solidified on the blade full of evil spirits. This flame spread from Shiryu of the Rain's hand, all the way to the point of the sword. Heating up Baidu. A word slowly spit out from Shiryu of Rain's mouth. Then the sword blade in his hand suddenly slashed out, and a crimson sword energy slashed towards the ship of the 100 Beast Pirates. During the 3 days of searching on the island, Shiryu of Rain was lucky and got the hot fruit. After he ate it, within a few days, he perfectly integrated the ability of the hot fruit into his swordsmanship. Zizi, zizi, the sea surface swept by the sword energy boiled like hot water under the horrified gazes of countless people. The huge ocean current suspended in the sky that day was also swept away by Shiryu of Rain's sword energy, and directly transpired into a huge mist of water. Fire swordsmanship. What? Quote. Of the Beast Pirates looked at the huge fireball condensed in the sky, and his eyes flickered. Words fell, without any hesitation, suddenly rushed towards the sword energy of Shiryu of the Rain. While smashing the sword energy abruptly, his arms resisted the surface of the kilometer-long fireball. Drink! I saw the blue veins overflowing from his forehead, and he roared suddenly. The huge fireball was actually shaken by him forcibly, and smashed towards Shiryu of the Rain and others on the shore. The Rain raised his brows and said, "It's a miscalculation, but it helped them." He spoke in a gentle tone, and the second-generation ghost in his hand suddenly slashed out with a sword. The fireball with a diameter of more than 1,000 meters was divided into 2 from the center and fell to the coasts on both sides. Are you the 3 plagues of the Beast Pirates? After severing the fireball, Shiryu of the Rain looked at the man opposite and asked indifferently, "I don't know who you are." Guess. The man didn't answer, and spoke coldly at Shiryu of the Rain. The words fell, the whole person suddenly rushed towards Shiryu of the Rain, and fought fiercely with Shiryu of the Rain. As one of the 3 major disasters of the Beast Pirates, the opponent's strength is extremely tyrannical. For a time, Shiryu of Rain, who had the hot fruit, was actually just and the other party fought evenly. Of course, a large part of the reason for this is also because Shiryu of the Rain is not familiar enough with hot fruits. If Shiryu of the Rain completely controls the ability of the hot fruit, and develops it to a certain extent, combined with his own swordsmanship, his combat power can fully reach the level of a naval admiral. At the same time, the collision of the cutting-edge combat power of the two sides directly detonated an all-out war. War broke out. It started. In the air far away from this battlefield, Morgans was very excited in the hot air balloon. Looking at the battlefield, he said, "I don't know if the legend will end here, or if the eight gods' kingdom was annihilated in history." The two subordinates behind him also looked nervous and excited. No matter what the outcome of this war is, it will surely shake the world. Is very likely that, completely rewrite the situation of the four emperors, and lead the times to an unpredictable future. To read the underlined version of the novel, please download Philu's novel. Chapter 163, The Strongest Creature, The Evenly Matched Peak Showdown. Boom! In the violent collision between Yagami Kingta and Kaido, the power of the final blow was exhausted, and they both retreated. With no land behind Kaido, he fell into the surging waves. Yagami Kingdu rolled over from the reef and landed on the shore. This collision is almost indistinguishable. Wow! Kaido is known as the strongest creature in the sea, land and air, and falling into the sea is naturally not a big deal. I saw the sea water exploded in an instant, his hair was disheveled, water drops all over his body, and he walked towards the shore step by step. The strength is not bad, the eight gods. Whoosh! The moment the voice fell, Kaido stepped out abruptly. The huge body rushed towards Yagami Kingdu at an extremely fast speed. At the same time as the punch fell, the roar shook the entire coast. However, if it's only at this level, you should just die obediently for Lao Su. Boom! The fists of the two collided again, once again triggering a terrifying power. The terrifying wind pressure exploded in all directions. The whole island was shaking, and no one dared to stay nearby. The strength is very strong, and the speed is very fast. At the same time as Kaido slammed the second punch, Yagami Aoto also flickered, judging Kaido's combat power. Kaido, whose physical strength is terrifying, is not very strong in simple attacks. Anyway, it's definitely not as good as the Whitebeard in his peak state. Otherwise, the title of Whitebeard's strongest would be long gone. But this so-called attack is not strong, and it is only under the defense of his immortal body. Its power is still enough to smash mountains and open islands. Kaido's defense and recovery ability does not need to be measured and judged, it must be the peak of the world. As for the speed and attack, it is not inferior to the Admiral Akainu and other admirals. And since Kaido is a powerhouse in pure physique, his armed arrogance and knowledge arrogance even surpass that of a naval admiral. If it weren't for the Eight Gates Dunjia formation of the Eight Gods Kangdu, it was also a physical skill that developed the body to the extreme, and in this respect it was even weaker than Kaido. An extremely terrifying existence. The combat power is stronger than everyone he has encountered so far. Yagami Soto has a rough judgment on Kaido in his heart. But his fighting spirit didn't fade in the slightest, instead it became more surging. He also wanted to know how powerful he is now. War. Yagami Kingdu took a deep breath. Instead of suppressing the fighting spirit in his heart, he let it boil. The red steam was fully activated and burst out against Kaido. Whoosh, whoosh, when Yagami Aoto and Kaido fought. The beast core also washed up on the shore. They were greeted by an army of giants led by Helding. In the face of the giant with 8 dungeon abilities, the many animal-type abilities of the beast core are small, like toys. Even if there are a large number of them, it is like a group of ants besieging an elephant. The giant elephant wiggles its body a few times, and the ant colony is helpless. Its defensive power is not something that small creatures like ants can easily shake. What are you doing? Seeing that the attack of the beast pirates was forcibly stopped by the giant core, Nina and others, the last 3 disasters who rushed to the shore shouted. This man is the hot-tempered Jack of the Drought. He stepped towards Nina and slammed it out. Nina used her armament-colored domineering defense, but she still couldn't stop it. Fortunately, they made preparations for retreat in advance, flew out backwards, and fell directly into the crowd, but they were not injured. Kill them all. Jack's voice swayed across the battlefield, with a repressed heart-pounding face. Rampage on the battlefield, both Gels and Nina were forced to back down and could not fight. And just when it rushed towards Rhodes, with one blow, Rhodes spit blood out of his mouth. A huge fist fell from the sky. Rumbling, in the terrifying wind pressure, Helding clenched his fists and slammed into Drought Jack. Instead of, abruptly slammed a punch and both backed away. He gave it to me. Helding stared at Jack and spoke in a calm tone. Rhodes and the others continued to fight fiercely with the pirates of the Beast Pirates. Among all the crew members of Yagami Kangdu, the one whose strength has improved the fastest is Helding. His physique is the most suitable for the 8-door Dunjia, and he can even open the door to death. But after all, it is not Yagami Kangdu, and opening the door of death requires paying the price of life. For the giants, the price is small, but it doesn't mean there is no. However, to the extent of opening the 7th gate, there is absolutely no side effect. Today, he has the strength after opening the 8 doors and the 7th floor, and even entered the echelon of Doflamingo. Who are you? Jack collided twice, but was completely blocked by Helding, bloodshot in his eyes, and asked Helding in a deep voice. Hyrding did not respond, and the 7th shock of the 8 gates Dunjia broke out. Originally tall and extremely oppressive, under the surging blue chakra, it is even more terrifying. Jack looked up at Gao. Helding, who was dozens of meters away, his face twitched. But he still roared angrily, swung his machete sharply, and slashed towards Helding's leg. Helding held both hands in the void, and the day and tiger condensed in an instant. He shouted violently and pushed the day tiger roaring towards Jack. Boom! The terrifying shock wave stirred on the coast, and some members of the Beast Pirates who were too close were directly annihilated. One casualty. Even though Jack has rough skin and thick flesh, and is an ancient animal species with mammoth fruit ability, and has a strong armed color and domineering. Under the attack of Helding's day tiger, he was inevitably injured. Messian looked a little embarrassed. He was angry. In the roar, his eyes were red, and he rushed towards Helding. However, after the outbreak of the 8 gates of Dunjia, Helding not only possesses a tyrannical and outrageous attacking power, but also possesses a speed that is completely inconsistent with his size. It avoided Jack's front in an instant, and another shock wave hit Jack's back. However, Jack has a bounty as high as 1,000,000,003 disasters, and it is not so easy to deal with. It's a rough-skinned and thick-skinned type, equivalent to a weakened version of Kaido. As expected of the 3 disasters, it is indeed difficult to deal with. Jack is very embarrassed at the moment, but it is only an appearance. Inside, it was clear that there was no serious injury. Even, still, self-healing at a certain speed. Difficult to kill a rough-skinned existence like Jack, so Hyrding would attack from time to time in the process of fighting with him. Jack is fine, but it makes many pirates in the Beast Pirates miserable. In addition to the 3 disasters, the 100 Beast Pirates have a large number of pirates with bounties of more than 340 million. After Nina and the others fought against each other, there were still some left. But the combat power of Yagami Kangdu is either extremely flexible, such as Nina and Gears, or it is extremely durable and can fight against many giant corps. Predominant in numbers does not lead to victory. Besides, Shiryu of the Rain, Hyrding, and the shadow clones of Yagami Kangdu 3 faced each of the 3 disasters, and almost all of them had the upper hand. It can even be a little free to deal with other officials of the Beast Pirates. The situation is deadlocked. It's hard to tell the winner in a short period of time. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 165, get the upper hand and beat Kaido. Day and night passed. The battle between the two sees no results. As for the coastline, the battle between the Beast Pirates and the Yagami Pirates. The two sides are only left with the three disasters and Shiryu of the Rain in fierce battle, and the others are short-term due to lack of physical strength. In such a high-intensity battle, the physical strength of Nina and the others could not sustain the intense battle for a day and a night. What's more, you will be injured in battle. Shiryu of the Rain and the others were better, but after a day and night of fierce fighting, they also temporarily stopped fighting. After the two sides retreated a certain distance, they were watching the battle between Yagami Soto and Kaido from a distance. Their side has been on the verge of reaching the limit day and night, but the fierce battle between Yagami Soto and Kaido is getting more and more intense. That Yagami Kangdu can actually fight with Lord Kai to this level. After all, the opponent is the recognized fifth emperor. Someone said in a deep voice. However, apart from that, Whitebeard, no one is the opponent of Lord Kaido fighting alone. As long as you take precautions against Shiryu of the Rain, don't let them interfere in Lord Kaido's battle. Yes, keep an eye on the people of the Eight Gods Pirates. Three disasters sat there cross-legged and spoke slowly. They fought fiercely with the Eight Gods Pirates for a day, and the final result was that the 100 Beast Corps killed a dozen people and injured dozens of people. Side of the Eight Gods Pirates, no one died. Continue shopping, although the Eight Gods Pirates will suffer casualties, but their side is bound to suffer heavy casualties. With Kaido around, there is absolutely no need to go shopping. As long as Kaido defeats Yagami Kangta, the Yagami Pirates will definitely be defeated. It's been a long time since I saw the captain in such a long struggle. Nina stood at the top of a treetop, looking into the depths of the island, the battle between Yagami Soto and Kaido. The enemy is Kaido after all. Halding replied in a deep voice. Statham shrugged and said, it seems that there is no one that can't be finished in 2 or 3 days. The guys from the 100 Beast Pirates should not wait for 2 or 3 days. So what? The second generation gooshed with a cloth and said, one more fight is. This battle, Shiryu of the Rain had a claw mark on his chest. Wound was not deep enough to affect his combat effectiveness, so he was simply bandaged. The others were also slightly injured, which did not affect their combat effectiveness at all. As long as you recover your stamina, you can continue to fight. Coupled with Gertz's healing fruit ability, the state of the Iori pirates quickly returned to its peak in all aspects. At this moment, it was already dark on the island. In the darkness, Yagami Kanto and 100 Beast Kaido are still fighting fiercely. In front of the top powerhouses in the sea, the influence of night and day is not great. In battle, almost all use the domineering sense of sight to perceive and act, and the dependence on vision is very low. The fire escapes the fire and extinguishes it. In the darkness, Yagami Soto and Kaido turned over and landed with a reckless move. There is no knot, and a large-scale, terrifying flame-like sea water is instantly released. Boring little tricks. Kaido's beard was flamboyant, and his fists turned into fans and swept out. Terrifying wind pressure directly extinguished the arrogant fire, but then he punched the Yagami Kangdu and collided with the Yagami Kangdu in the air. The two fists exchanged, and Yagami Kangdu's expression remained unchanged. Stepping into the void, the whole person jumped towards Kaido's head, and at the same time gave a low drink. Earth escaped the technique of adding weight to the rock. Boom! Wrapped in a powerful fist, a punch hit Kaido's head. Punch, although it is difficult to cause any damage to Kaido, the impact of the impact is enough to make Kaido stumble. Woo! Facing the innumerable gravels with a diameter of hundreds of meters that collided in all directions, Kaido shouted angrily. Fists were swung out, and the 2 pieces of sand and gravel were smashed into pieces in an instant. But at this moment, Yagami Sudo rushed out of the darkness and attacked Kaido's chest. Kaido didn't have time to make a punch, so he was forced to cross his arms and block in front of him. Under Yagami Kangdu's blow, his body swayed slightly and he took a step back. Boom! A huge gravel with a diameter of several hundred meters flew over and slammed into Kaido's left shoulder. Kaido was not smashed into the air, but his entire body was also tilted to the right, revealing a flaw. Yagami Kangdu decisively seized the flaw and suddenly punched Kaido's ribs. Om! The fist is wrapped in a terrifying shock wave. Although Kaido used his arrogance to resist, Yagami Kangdu's fist broke Kaido's ribs forcibly. Hem! Kaido roared and grabbed Yagami Kanto with his backhand. Yagami Kangdu did not hesitate at all and stepped back decisively. Wangquan Hirazaka activated and appeared dozens of meters away in an instant. ZZ. Kaido's rib bones healed quickly. As one of the 4 emperors, he has lost a lot of times because of the other 4 emperor pirates and the navy. No amount of serious injuries have been suffered. There are times when the red hair pierces the body. But no one could kill him, not even the redhead. It doesn't hurt or itches. Is this all your strength? Work hard, I won't feel happy. Being stabbed by Yagami Soto, Kaido didn't get angry. Instead, he grinned, showing a heart-pounding expression. With a terrifying smile, the whole person suddenly rushed towards Yagami Kangdu again. Boom! Kaido's fist kept falling, and finally he punched out. Yagami Kangdu successfully evaded with Wangquan Hirazaka. It's my turn. Immediately afterwards, Yagami Kangdu chuckled and moved. Both feet stepped on the ground with cracks that stretched dozens of meters, and looked at Kaido with a calm expression. Of his confrontation with Kaido takes turns. This kind of alternate eruption is more beneficial to him. If it is a continuous explosion of confrontation, it is obviously unwise to face Kaido's existence. How terrifying the physical strength of Kaido's huge body is. Whoosh! Yagami Kangdu stepped out, and the whole person suddenly came to Kaido's leg. Elephant erupted, sweeping across the bones of Kaido's legs. Kaido didn't have the slightest bit of timidity, and the domineering look had already caught Yagami Kangdu's actions. His legs were instantly attached to a layer of jet black armed color domineering, and he kicked at Yagami Kangdu. Chong! Wind pressure swept through. Yagami Kanto's Yushang shattered the domineering armament, leaving a bloodstain on Kaido's leg. But it couldn't pierce his strong muscles and hurt his hamstrings. Since Yagami Kangdu was the first to shoot, Kaido caught Yagami Kangdu's movement and kicked it horizontally. If the speed is a little slower, the vigor will naturally be weaker by a small beat. Whoosh! After successfully wounding Kaido, Yagami Kangdu didn't stop at all. Figure flickered, avoiding the huge palm that Kaido grabbed. He came to Kaido's back and pressed his hands down. A cold glow flashed in his eyes, and he took a step forward. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 166. The outcome is unpredictable, the drawbacks exposed. Day Tiger. Sigh. In the next instant, the figure of Yagami Soto suddenly came from Kaido's back and came to him. At the same time, a terrifying roaring white tiger appeared in the void. The white tiger landed on Kaido's chest and abdomen, and suddenly burst open. Boom! The terrifying sound of explosions exploded one after another on Kaido's body. When the explosion stopped, Kaido's body stood still. A trace of blood suddenly overflowed from the corner of his mouth, dripping toward the ground below. Kaido looked at his chest and abdomen, and a trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. If the attack from outside the body is all resisted by his physique. But just now, he clearly felt the attack that directly slammed into his body. Even if the range is small, the fragile internal organs cannot withstand this kind of impact many times. If the power of this move was even greater, it would also be very dangerous for him. The defense is really amazing. Yagami Kangdu fell to the ground, but it's not a pity. Kaido's body is undoubtedly different from ordinary people, at least, stronger than anyone he has seen so far. Even the current Yagami Kangdu has only a rough range of judgment and cannot be accurately determined. If it is still a normal life, then breaking the head or heart, it is enough to reach the level of fatal injury. But Kaido claims to be immortal, and it is estimated that it is impossible to kill so easily. Otherwise, Kaido would have no idea how many times he was killed by the world government. Yes, it's finally a bit powerful. The injury in Kaido recovered quickly, and he stopped thinking about what was going on. Looking up at Yagami Kangdu, he opened his mouth coldly. However, that's all there is to it. Kaido snorted coldly, rushed towards Yagami Kangdu, and launched a fierce attack. Although his preference is suicide, it does not mean that he wants to die in the hands of Yagami Kangdu. He likes suicide because no one can kill him, not even himself. But if there is a power that can kill him, then he won't have a problem with his mind to actively ask for death. That kind of death is meaningless. Unless Yagami Kangdu can defeat him head-on and kill him. Chang! Under Kaido's onslaught, Yagami Soto retreated continuously. While parrying constantly, the power of the 8 dungeons also erupted. The ground shattered continuously, condensing pieces of sand and gravel that slammed into Kaido, blocking Kaido's fierce offensive. In an instant, the two hit a distance of 1,000 meters, and the island was in a mess. Those overlord-level beasts like the silverback giant ape, under the power and vigor of Yagami Kangdu and people. He simply fled after hearing the wind, and didn't even dare to look at it much. Drink. After Kaido's continuous attack, he punched hard. At the same time as the sparks splashed, Yagami Kanto was smashed into the ground. The ground cracked open, spreading in all directions like a spider web. With the 8 gates Dunjia formation and the Susanoo skeleton hand summoned in an instant, although he was blasted into the ground, Yagami Soto did not suffer any damage. Day Tiger. Yagami Kangdu charged up again, and rushed out from the ground. However, as the heads-up king, Kaido is not a fixed target. On the one hand, he didn't pay much attention to the previous one, and on the other hand, Yagami Kangdu used his abilities to create opportunities. It won't be so easy to hit again this time. The figure of Yagami Kangdu instantly cut through the void and appeared dozens of meters away. Kaido did not choose to resist hard, but keenly avoided the attack of the Day Tiger. Whoosh! Kaido didn't pause too much, and noticed that after the outbreak of Yagami Soto, his breath weakened slightly. He rushed forward decisively, wanting to beat Yagami Kangdu. He is not strong in attack, and Yagami Kangdu's physique and recovery ability are also extraordinary. With Wonkwon Hirazaka's evasion ability, he couldn't do much effective damage to Yagami Soto. But in the process of escaping constantly, Yagami Kanto is calmly judging his position. In the fierce battle with Kaido, although he is also fiercely fighting, he maintains an absolute calm. Even if it is impossible to judge every move and every style accurately, most of them are counteracted by instinctive reactions. But throughout the battle, Yagami Kangdu's thoughts remained clear. Between Yagami Kangdu and 100 Beast Kaido has lasted for 2 days and 2 nights. Of the fight between the two sides was sent by Morgans in the form of a telegram a day earlier. Was not written as a press release, it was only spread as underground news in the dark underground world. All forces have learned the news of the battle between the 8 Gods Pirates and the 100 Beasts Pirates on Koduka Island. While terrified, they were also nervous. Especially some of the forces under Kaido's banner. In addition, no one tried to go to Koduka Island. The Imperial battle is not so easy to watch. Besides, it's been 2 days now, unless it's the islands very close to Koduka. Otherwise, even with the fastest boat, it will be too late. The first-line news is firmly locked in the hands of Morgans. Morgans also made a lot of money with this, and there are not a few people who pay attention to the battle between the 8 gods and the beasts. Except Morgans. The Navy and the world government also received information from Koduka at the first time. As for how they receive it, it's pretty simple too. Most of the news birds in the sky are subordinate to the world government, and some news birds carry video phone bugs. Although it can't be too close to cause the picture to be blurred, it can also vaguely judge the current situation of Kaduka. The entire Navy headquarters has entered the highest preparations, and may be dispatched at any time. Boom, boom. Yagami Kingta and 100 Beast Kaido continue their fierce battle. The entire island has been beaten into a mess, and there is hardly a single intact place. The beasts and beasts living on the island were also caught in the center of the 8 gods pirates and the 100 beasts pirates. Even though they have strong powers, they are not the opponents of Shiryu of the Rain and the 3 Calamities. For Yagami Soto and 100 Beast Kaido, the battle is not over yet. But for Shiryu of the Rain and the 3 Calamities, it was already the second time they faced each other. This time, gradually gained the upper hand by virtue of their numerical advantage. A character like Shiryu of the Rain is difficult to deal with crowd tactics. But Nina and the others were not enough to ignore the influence of the crowd tactics. And once Nina and others are suppressed, it will immediately affect the elites of the Beast Pirates with a reward of 340 million. They are qualified to intervene in the battlefield of the 3 disasters. Such a layer-by-layer influence will eventually lead to tilt the balance of victory and defeat. After all, the power of the 8 gods pirates in the middle and lower layers is still weaker. Chapter 167. Reinforcement, the world is about to change. However, despite falling behind, the Beast Pirates couldn't defeat Shiryu of Rain and the others in a short period of time. Can't even support Kaido, strangulation, Yagami Kingta. To intervene in the battle between Yagami Kingta and Kaido, he must be at the level of the 3 Calamities at least. The others were killed in an instant, and it was not so easy for the 3 disasters to escape from the frontal battlefield. Sure enough, it's still too reluctant. In the process of fighting against Kaido, Yagami Kanto did not completely ignore the battlefield where Shiryu of the Rain and others were. Sensing that they were falling into a disadvantage, he couldn't help but murmured in his heart. If the 8 gods pirates have the complete force of the middle and lower tiers, the situation at this moment must be that they have the upper hand. And just when Yagami Soto and Kaido continued their shopping, planning to end the battle with Kaido before Shiryu of the Rain and others had major problems on the battlefield. Several ships of the Beast Pirates arrived at Koduka Island. Reinforcement arrives. Kaido came to find trouble for Yagami Kingta, but he did not concentrate the entire Beast Pirates and its troops. But here is Koduka Island, not far from the Beast's domain. 2 days and 2 nights have passed since their battle here, and the other party's support finally came. Reinforcement. Shiryu of the Rain walked on the moon and hovered in midair. From a distance, he saw the ship of the Beast Pirates that arrived at the coastline. There was a trace of blood on the corner of his mouth, and his eyes looked a little gloomy. Of the 100 Beasts Pirates naturally do not have characters of the level of the 3 disasters. However, there are still a lot of pirates with a bounty of 1 or 200 million. The situation on their side was inherently unfavorable, and once the reinforcements from the other side came, the situation was bound to take a turn for the worse. At that time, I'm afraid I can only rely on Gertz's ability to go shopping. Shiryu of the Rain has the confidence to kill the 3 disasters on the opposite side under the outbreak. But the problem is that after killing the opponent, it is difficult for him to get out of his body, and it is very likely that he will also die here. Reinforcement. Yagami Kingdo also noticed the presence of reinforcements from the 100 Beast Pirates, and his thoughts flashed in his mind. He couldn't help but take a deep breath, a determination flashed in his eyes. He looked at Kaido, the beast who was panting, and the Samsara Shunyan suddenly burst out. Boom! A terrifying roar suddenly sounded, and the Crimson Giant appeared in an instant. Complete body Susanoo, hideous face, body size is bigger than Kaido. The 10-fist sword crashed down, carrying the shock wave that erupted from the 8 gates Dunjia formation, and bombed towards Kaido. Even if Kaido turned on his armament in time, he still spat out a mouthful of blood. The whole person crossed an arc and flew backwards at a terrifying speed. It went, whether it was a tree or a rock, it was smashed to pieces. In this way, it is impossible to curb its tendency to fly backwards and traverse all the way. What's the move? Watch out. On the battlefield where Shiryu of the Rain was located, someone observed Kaido flying over from a distance. First startled for a moment, then his face changed drastically, and they all retreated to both sides. A pirate who can't escape, with a reward of over 100 million, and was hit by Kaido's body that flew upside down. On the spot, the tendon was broken and fractured, and it flew out. Master Kaido. Aware that the figure flying upside down was Kaido, many pirates of the 100 Beast Pirates showed a look of astonishment. Ultimately, Beast Kaido flew out of the island, and by chance collided with a ship owned by the Beast Pirates. At the same time that the ship was hit and shattered in an instant, it finally stopped the tendency to fly upside down and fell into the sea far away. How? It's impossible. The three disasters of the 100 Beast Pirates and many pirates, looking at this scene, all changed their faces drastically. Originally had the upper hand, but there was a pause for a while. Shiryu of the Rain and the others would naturally not miss this opportunity, and they all made their best efforts. Go. The pirates of the 100 Beasts Pirates were caught off guard, and several small leaders who offered a reward of 200 to 300 million were killed. The rest of the people just woke up like a dream, lost their will to fight for a while, and fled towards the coastline. Shiryu of the Rain and others chased after them for a while, then stopped. Everyone was breathing heavily, including Nina's body, with blood and scars. Is this a win? Shiryu of the Rain was panting violently. There was a bloody claw mark on his back, deep to the bone, and the injury was not light. That's right. Helding took a deep breath, barely holding his breath. He had a penetrating wound in his abdomen, and it was not known that it was penetrated by something, but the injury was not minor. Nina is a little bit better, but the physical strength is a bit exhausted. It's all right. Yagami Kangdu hovered in midair, watching the crowd silently. He does have the ability to quickly repel Kaido, but he always needs to train the people under him. Everyone seems to be doing well. With Gertz, the one with the ability to heal the fruit, although they were seriously injured, they still possess the power to continue chasing the Beast Pirates. Do you want to pursue it, Captain? Shiryu of the Rain is in high spirits. He didn't expect Yagami Kanto to defeat Kaido, which made his mood even more surging. But Yagami Kanto waved his hand and rejected Shiryu of Rain's request. Wait. On the other side of the island, a boat also docked. With Yagami Kangdu's perception ability, he clearly noticed that there were several auras on the boat that he was very familiar with. You don't have to hunt down the Beast Pirates. Someone looking for death has come to your door. When Yashin Kangdu spoke calmly, a cold light flashed in his eyes. The few breaths he sensed just now were the highest level of the World Government Intelligence Agency. Koduka Island. The sky 1,000 meters away. Morgans, the president of the big news agency, and two of his subordinates have not slept for several days. But at the moment, there was no sign of tiredness on his face. Unbelievable. The Beast Pirates were repelled. Morgans put down the telescope, and there was a trace of tremor in his eyes. Although the 8 gods pirates have created countless miracles, in fact, he still prefers the victory of the Beast Pirates. After all, Kaido's existence is an undead monster that countless people fear. But now, it was the 100 Beasts Pirates who were repelled. Although almost all of the Yagami Pirates were injured, the same was true of the 100 Beasts Pirates. The Beast Corps suffered a lot of casualties. Being able to repel the Beast Pirates meant that the 8 gods pirates had completely secured their position as the 5 emperors. Possess the ability to completely overturn the pattern of the 4 emperors of the New World. Philo reminds you, 3 things in reading: collect, recommend and share. Chapter 170. The curtain is over, the Beast Pirates retreat. The temporary task is completed, and the leader of Zero, Ryan, has been successfully killed. Reward: Bait 500. Shiryu of the Rain shook his body and barely kept standing. Is it dead? Dead. Yagami Kanto nodded. The words, Shiryu of the Rain stumbled towards Jeers. Day Tiger. Helding sent out a shock wave, attacking Deputy Chief Zero. If Deputy Chief Zero is in full bloom, he can avoid it by virtue of his knowledge and domineering. But now he couldn't escape, and was bombarded by the Day Tiger. Whoosh! And when the Day Tiger arc dissipated, Yagami Kingdu appeared on his back. The same Day Tiger roared out, but the power was completely different. Directly through his chest. Blood splattered. Headmaster widened his eyes, and there was a look of unwillingness in his eyes. He tried hard to turn around, but his strength dissipated like a tide, and finally fell to the ground. Trash. Yagami Kanto shook his head and pulled out Murasama. So far. Apart from the only one who was deliberately left alive, the other four, including the chief and deputy chief, were all wiped out. Time, only 3 minutes. Go, get out of here first. Killing the 0th deputy chief, Yagami Kingdu spoke to everyone around him. By the way, Gertz, don't let him die, it's still useful. While walking towards the outside of the island, Yagami Aoto turned back and pointed to the half-dead 0 Division captain. Yes. Gilles nodded and put a faint halo into the body of the captain of the 0th Division. Maintain the vitality of the opponent, and quickly keep up with the team. So far. The war that lasted nearly 3 days and 3 nights finally came to an end. Taking a special aircraft, I watched the entire war from a distance and recorded Morgan's and others. At this moment, they all wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads and looked at each other. It's finally over. I didn't expect the 8 Gods pirates to hide so deeply, and even the 100 Beasts pirates were not able to force out their full strength. I thought it would be very dangerous for Iori Kanto and others to encounter 0 at this time. But I didn't expect that it was almost a face-to-face meeting, and in less than a few minutes, I was beaten to death. Beast pirates fought fiercely, and the Yagami pirates, after the 100 Beast pirates were repelled, even had the power to kill 0 assassination troops. This is absolutely terrifying. Now, the New World is about to enter the era of the rule of 5 emperors. Morgans took a deep breath, and while he spoke slowly, there was a trace of shock in his eyes. A few days later, Yagami Kingto led the Beast Pirates led by the Yagami Pirates to fight fiercely for 3 days and nights on Duka Island, and finally the news of the Beast Pirates repelling spread across the sea. The world shook. It was from this day that the quotation marks on the word, 5 emperors, were removed. The reign of the 4 emperors has come to an end, and the New World has completely entered the era of the 5 emperors. World Government. Holy Land Mary Joa. In the office of the highest level, the expressions of the 5 old stars are all suppressed and solemn. One by one, the whole room was filled with a heart-pounding atmosphere. The balance is broken. Someone spoke slowly. The situation of the 4 emperors facing each other, coupled with the Chiwahai system, the existence of the navy and the world government. Of the sea to a certain extent, and there will not be too much chaos. 4. The 5 old stars, they don't care about some local struggles at all. They don't even care what the new world is like. Let the 4 emperors rule a sea area, and how to give up a little bit of sea area in the whole world seems trivial. But of Yagami Kingdu is the beginning of the collapse of the balance. The continuous killing of Yagami Soto, the Shichibukai system has since recruited 2 Shichibukai, but due to the Dressrosa incident, it has become a system on the verge of collapse. Of the 5 emperors will also completely break the situation of the balance of the 4 emperors. Coupled with the complete hostility between Yagami Soto and the world government and the navy, the next developments are likely to be increasingly unfavorable to the world government. Unless the other 4 emperors can stop the development of the 8 gods. The balance of the world cannot be maintained forever. The sword-wielding Wu Laoxing spoke slowly and said with a cold gaze, perhaps it's time for a cleanup. Hearing the word, clean up, the room fell into silence. After a while, Let's just wait and see what happens. A five-old star next to him said in a low tone, the chaos in the new world will not spread to the whole world so soon, and it is not yet time to alarm Lord Yimu. Yes, the 8 gods pirates are now caught between us and the 4 emperors. If you want to expand your power, you need to have more than one conflict with the 4 emperors, and it is not appropriate to intervene now. Let the intelligence community pay close attention to the follow-up to the New World. New World. Somewhere in the sea, the ship of the Yagami pirates is moving slowly. The bounty has not changed. It seems that there won't be much change in a short period of time. Geld sat in a chair and read the newspaper he got today. Has things been suppressed? Shiryu of the Rain sat not far away, holding a cigar and said. Nina nodded, spread out the newspaper, and said, it's not published at all. As expected. Shiryu of the Rain threw a peanut into his mouth and said with a smile, but the beast pirates have been repelled, and it's enough for the news to spread. Today's Iori pirates need prestige and fame. Why can the 4 emperors shelter an island, and no one dares to infringe on the flag because the name of the 4 emperors resounds in the sea? Anyone with some brains will not dare to cause trouble under the banner of the 4 emperors. And the 8 gods pirates are in before, they were not qualified to plant flags. But starting from repelling the beast pirates, even if they really have the capital to occupy their territory. Captain. Nina asked Iori Soto, we will go to Kono Island to rest first and return to Dressrosa. Or go to Wano country and invade the territory of the 100 beast pirates. The ship has been at sea for several days after leaving Koduka. Food, fresh water, etc. Or not much anymore. The next step is to leave Koduka Island and return to Dressrosa. Either continue to invade the territory of the 4 emperors and start an invasion war. Yagami Kingdu looked at Nina and said, there is currently no way to kill Kaido of the beasts. Even if you invade the Sea of Beasts, you will not be able to expand your territory and gain a firm foothold there. Yes. Nina nodded. The other 3 disasters are nothing more than one Kaido, which is indeed a big trouble. It is a serious matter to want to tear a piece of meat from Kaido's territory. But then again, tearing flesh from the other 4 emperors is equally serious. None of the 4 emperors would choose to swallow their voices when their territories were invaded and occupied. Chapter 171, Giants, Elbaf. I'm considering the feasibility of turning to thieves. There was a hint of thought in the eyes of Yashin Kangdu. Nina thought for a while and said, to deal with the thief, your battle may be easier, but our battle will be much harder. By 100 beasts Kaido are almost all established on the basis of the animal system, and those who are not of the animal system are extremely rare. Because of this, there are not many troops under the 100 beast pirates. In other words, it is much smaller than the thief. Unlike the beast pirates, thieves accept all races. With his children as the core cadres, he established a complete and huge country, and his troops were extremely numerous. Of the 4 generals standing at the top is also as famous as the 3 disasters of the 100 beast pirates. In this case, Yagami Kingdu singles out. Although it will be easier than one-on-one Kaido will be in trouble in the face of the huge army of the thieves. If Yagami Kingdu wins first, then this battle will naturally be won by them. But if they can't stand it first, this battle will definitely be defeated. Yeah, not enough troops. Yagami Kingdu has the confidence to win in a short time. But whether others can stop the Wangguo army in a short period of time, that's right. For today's Yagami Soto, he can easily leave under any circumstances, even with Nina and others. But if you want to expand your power, others also need corresponding strength. He can't run around alone. And just when Yagami Kingdu was thinking, Hiredin came to the hall, walked in front of Yagami Kingdu, paused for a while, and said in a low voice, Captain, I received news from my hometown before. There are warriors from Elba who want to join us. I don't know if we can turn to Elbaf. Now the giant corps has become famous all over the world along with the 8 gods pirates. In addition to jeers, the reputation of the four giants resounded in the sea, even surpassing the glory of the giant pirates. And Elbaf, naturally, began to be proud of Helding and others. Some of these young giant warriors aspire to be part of the giants. Elbaf. Yagami Kingdu came back to his senses, looked at Hyerding, thought for a moment, and then nodded. This made me drowsy and brought a pillow. The giants are all warriors who have received strict training since childhood, and they are very strong in combat. Even if there is no devil fruit, the strength is still above those pirates who offer a reward of tens of millions, and it is close to the small leader of the beast pirates. And the elites in the giant clan like Helding, with all their strength, can blast the Don Quixote family Kadri Mahabe into the sky abruptly. This can still be achieved from the desire to obtain the fighting power of the giants before Hyerding has learned armor. Seeing Yagami Kingdu's agreement, Hyerding smiled and bowed solemnly to Yagami Kingdu. I thank you on behalf of Elbaf, the warriors of the giant clan will not let you down. I believe in the abilities of the giants. Iori Kingdu looked at Hyerding, stood up, and said, leave the rest aside, the 5 of you have been doing very well, and I am very satisfied. Helding and others aside, Jeers's healing ability is very good. For the Ape God's pirates, it is already one of the indispensable powers. Nina stood aside with a smile on her face, and said, if there are warriors from the giant race, it will be much safer to deal with thieves. Hearing Nina's words, Helding was stunned for a moment, and said, deal with thieves. If nothing else, the next thing to deal with is thieves. Yagami Kingdu spoke in a calm tone. He knew the personal grievances between Hyerding and the giants. Helding clenched his fist, and it was difficult to suppress his emotions for a while. That monster. After almost destroying Elbaf, he was the existence he hated the most and longed to kill the most. But he knew that he would not be an opponent. Learned such divine skills as Bam and Dunjia from Yagami Kingdu, it was only possible to challenge him. Before, when Yagami Kingta, Nina and the others were discussing the next target, when choosing one from the beast pirates and the thief, he really wanted to propose to deal with the thief. And hatred or personal grudges. Today, together with the entire giant corps, it is difficult to repay the kindness owed to Yagami Kingdu. Where can I be cheeky and propose to deal with the thief in front of Yagami Kanto? I thought that after the previous battle, Yagami Kingta would fight the beast pirates to the end. Unexpectedly, it was at this time that I learned that there was an opponent next. Betting on Elbaf's name, the giants will do their best to help you destroy the thieves. Helding knelt down on one knee, and his eyes showed unprecedented firmness. Nina gave Helding a slightly surprised look, guessing that Helding might have a personal grudge. However, the relationship between the giants in the information is indeed very bad. Half a month later. Elbaf. Today's Yagami pirates, except the Navy headquarters and the Holy Land Mary Joa, can be said to go wherever they want. High mobility and fast action, even if the world government is always watching, no troops will be sent out. The price to pay to encircle and suppress a 5 emperor pirates at sea is too great. It's back again, Elbaf, it's been a while. Gels stood on the deck, looking at Elbaf in front of him from a distance. Yagami Kingdu was sitting on her shoulder, raised his brows when he heard this, and said, you seem to have said before that it has been more than 10 years since you left Elbaf. Yeah, it's been a while. Gels smiled. The lifespan of giants is several times that of humans, and a duel can even last for hundreds of years. Very slow in terms of time, a few years are really not a long time in terms of feeling. Has only been 2 or 3 years since he followed Yagami Kingdu. This time is like taking a nap for the giants like Gels and Helding. However, in such a short period of time, they have become world-famous giants. Once again regained the prestige of the giants, it also became the glory of Elbaf. Look, they're back. On the shores of Elbaf, many giants are waiting here. They have been waiting since they learned that Helding and the others were coming back. For more than half a month, they hardly feel anything. Oh, Helding. The giants sitting there stood up, including some giant children who were not very big. Of course, not to say tall, but also much taller than normal adult humans. The teenagers of the giant clan all cheered. The past year, they have been hearing about the giant core one after another, and their eyes are full of admiration. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 172, Fight, the outrageously powerful Helding. Are you Tusius? You have grown up a lot. Helding stepped off the boat, looked at the group of teenagers rushing over, and touched one of them's head with a stern hand. The giants have a long life, more than 10 years, which is only equivalent to 3 or 4 years of human beings. These giant youths are actually in their 20s and 30s, but they are still too early to reach adulthood. Except Helding. The other roads and others were also welcomed by the entire Elbaf. For a time, the entire shore was extremely lively, and countless giants grinned and smiled. It really feels like back then. Speaking of which, it's been almost 100 years since the Green Ghost and the Red Ghost came back. This duel is a bit too long. Someone grinned and mentioned the 2 former captains of the giant soldier pirates. And at this moment, a boy from a giant clan discovered Yagami Kingta sitting on Jeers's shoulder, and could not help asking Jeers. Who is that? Is it human? Elbaf hasn't seen many humans since decades ago. Seeing the very small Yagami Kingdu, these giant teenagers are very curious. Jeers squinted his eyes and smiled, and said in a respectful tone, "This is our captain, Yagami Kingta. He is the Lord Yagami Kingdu." The giant boy Tusius, who was standing beside him, was stunned for a moment. The matter of Helding and the giant core was circulated in Elbaf, and the matter of the Yagami pirates was naturally mixed into it. Giants all know that Helding is currently under the banner of the 8 gods pirates. Of course, the name of Yagami Kingdu is not unfamiliar. But Tusius stared at Yagami Kingdu with an expression of disbelief. Matter how you look at it, Yagami Kingdu doesn't look like the legendary powerhouse. It's also a little too skinny. Not to mention compared to adults, even if compared to them, they are much smaller and much smaller. The slender arms and legs seem to be able to blow even a slightly stronger breeze. Iori Kingdu. Some giants nearby also discovered Yagami Kingdu, and they all showed some strange expressions. As for 8-God Kingdu, the 5th emperor who reigns in the New World, and what Helding is currently working for, they are naturally clear. In their impression, Yagami Soto should be a very terrifying image. But at the moment, it looks a bit petite. It is really hard for them to imagine the appearance of Yagami Kingdu. Kaido's huge size defeated by Yagami Soto. Could it be wrong? Someone muttered softly. The person next to him was also stunned, and said slightly in disbelief, It's really not the same as I imagined. They haven't seen Kaido and Whitebeard, but they lived here for a while. The size is not much different from the size of the giants. Such a thin body, does it really have the kind of amazing power that is rumored? I am very sorry, Yagami Kingdu. Gertz couldn't help but look at Yagami Kanto. Iori Kingdu didn't mind, and said lightly, "It's okay. It's like living in the mountains and forests without electricity all your life, suddenly seeing things outside, always feel incredible and difficult to react." Saya. Just when everyone was suspicious, Helding shouted at the muttering person, and said solemnly, "The captain's strength is much stronger than mine. If you doubt the captain's strength, then come and challenge me twice." The giants have always been going straight, just like the little people will listen to any lie, but the giants have almost no concept of lying. Hearing Helding's words, many giants were a little surprised, thinking that Helding would actually think that his strength was much weaker than Yagami Kingdu. They would not doubt what Helding said, but the result was a little too hard to believe. "Is what you said true, Helding?" The giant Saya squeezed out of the crowd, tilted his head to look at Kingdu, and then turned to Helding. He is a giant about the same age as Helding, and he has often fought and competed with Helding since he was a child. After Helding went to sea, he stayed in Elbaf. As for Helding's reputation outside the world, jealousy and other emotions are no. Just while I was happy for Hierding, my heart also had a bit of blood surging. The last time he fought with Helding was more than 10 years ago. Don't you believe it? Helding stared at Saya unsmilingly, raised his chin slightly, and said, "Or you want to be taught a lesson by me again?" Saya grinned and said with a smile, "You have always lost the most, Helding. In the past 10 years outside, the confidence has become very hard." He walked towards Helding, intending to have a contest with Helding. Seeing this, many giants next to them retreated to both sides. They also want to see how much stronger Helding, who has made a big name outside, has become. Look at the trick. Saya walked towards Helding and took a stance. Afterwards, he rushed forward suddenly and punched Helding, wrapped in the sound of the wind. However, the face of Sayan's punch, Helding did not make any dodge or block action. He just stood there with a cold and serious look on his face, letting the fist hit his face. Stunned for a moment, not expecting Helding to avoid dodging. The fist couldn't be drawn. What shocked him was that the fist hit Helding's cheek, but it was Saya himself who was sent flying. I saw that the huge Helding was covered with terrifying blue steam. The originally relatively soft breath has now become extremely fierce. What's the matter? Many giants were shocked when they saw this scene. The ability that blue steam has never seen before, nor is it like a devil fruit. Many people had shocked expressions on their faces. Even Yorulu, the elder of the giant clan, who is several hundred years old, opened his turbid eyes and his expression moved. Saya got up from the ground and shook his numb fist. Looking up at Helding again, his eyes were full of shock. Helding is very strong, not ordinary strong. At least, Saya believes that he is no longer qualified to compete with Helding. But he is a giant. Even if he knew he wasn't Hierding's opponent, he couldn't easily admit defeat. He clenched his fists, stimulated the strength in his body, and roared suddenly. Elbaf. Gun. Om. As he punched out, a burst of shock slammed into Helding's body. Day Tiger. Helding finally moved. Pushing out with both hands, the white tiger roared and rushed out. Boom. Wherever I pass, there are sonic booms. An instant, the spear of Saya's Elbaf was broken. And bombarded his body, causing him to fly upside down in an instant. Saya was completely blinded. He fell to the ground, unable to get up. Chapter 173. The sword comes out, the sea overturns. Second kill. Many giants watched this scene and couldn't help but be shocked. Sayan's strength is definitely a famous warrior among the giants. He had duel with Hierding many times, winning more and losing less. Now, even Hierding couldn't stop one move, and was instantly defeated. Jeers looked at Saya, who was knocked to the ground by lightning, and did not show any unexpected expression. She knew very well how far Helding and others were now from before. The ability to obtain such power all comes from Yagami Kangdu. That cannot be repaid. You can only do your best to fight for Yagami Kangdu. The seed of healing. Gals took a breath and flicked his finger at Sayan. A ray of white light flew out and fell into Saya's body. The doctor in the giant clan stepped forward to check Saya's condition, heaved a sigh of relief, and said, "It's nothing, let's carry it to the back." Turn your head. The eyes of many giants looking at Helding have changed. Some people have already shown a little awe, and Hierding today is completely different from that year. While in awe of Hierding's power, some people can't help but think that Hierding said that Yagami Kangdu's strength is far stronger than him. It can even be seen from Hierding's reverent gaze that Iori Kangdu is probably more than a little bit stronger than him. Helding doesn't lie. Hierding's current strength can defeat Saya with a single blow. How strong should Iori Kangdu be? It is unbelievable that such a thin body contains far more power than Hierding. Iori Kangdu is sitting on Gale. On his shoulders, his hands and fingers crossed on his lap. Looking at the giants with a calm expression, he spoke in a calm tone. I often hear Gertz talk about Elbaf, saying that the giants are all born warriors, and I do believe that the giants have extraordinary power. However, Yagami Kangdu pointed to Saya, who was carried down, and said, "This is still too weak." Hearing Yagami Kangdu's words, many giants looked at each other, but no one spoke. They were all thinking about the power of Yagami Kangdu, who was stronger than Hyarding. Under the watchful eyes of countless giants, Soto Yagami flew up from Gertz's shoulders. Looking down at the earth below, his eyes were flat, and he gently pulled out the demon sword Murasama with his right hand. Do you know how big the world is? If you don't know, I'll take you to see it. Voice fell, and Yagami Kangdu raised Murasama in his hand and waved it lightly towards the sea. Boom! A sword fell, and the sea overturned. I saw the sea that stretched for thousands of meters, and a shocking wave swept across the sky and rushed into the clouds. Turned into a vast and majestic waterfall, stretching to the end of the sky, connecting the sky and the sea. Countless giant fish, even sea kings, struggled on this waterfall. In the huge eyes, they seemed to be hung up and at a loss. The copyright of the novel resource belongs to the original author. The text is only for personal study and trial reading. Please delete it within 24 hours after downloading. Please support subscribing to Genuine Novels and refuse piracy. This novel was first published by Dragon. Feilu's novel Internal Group 1,142,529,731. More wonderful Feilu novels are in the hands of the group owner. Welcome to the group. Words are hard to describe this picture. All the giants fell into sluggishness at this moment. The eyes of countless people were exposed, and their hearts were shocked. Compared with the waves that traversed the sky like a vast waterfall, Yagami Kangdu's figure floating in the sky was as small as a black spot. But no need to show any momentum. Just this picture will forever be fixed in the hearts of all giants. Captain's strength. I'm still far behind. Helding murmured. Gels looked at the sea that cascaded across the sky with deep respect and admiration on his face. Such power, even for the giants, is unattainable in a lifetime. On the sea. The captain has started messing around again. Sugar had a speechless expression on her face. Nina tilted her head and smiled and said, "No way, who made him the captain?" The vast waterfall paused in the sky for 2 seconds, and then began to fall towards the sea. Fell into the sea with a bang, causing the entire sea to be turbulent. Set off rushed in the direction of Elbaf. Yagami Kangdu swept away the waves that were pressing across, but took Murasama back. Turned his back and did not look at the waves that swept over. Whoosh! Just the next moment. Shiryu of the rain blew a puff of smoke and rushed out of the boat with a slight shake of his head. Generation Ghost flickered in the cold light, wrapped in a scorching cold, and pierced into the waves that swept over. Blast! Boom! The surging waves quickly evaporated, centered on the place where his sword was pierced. Instant, the sky-shattering waves turned into mist all over the sky. Under the sunlight, the rainbow is dazzling and eye-catching. Yagami Sudo and others stayed in Elbaf for 10 days. There were originally 3 giants who intended to join Helding, but when Helding informed that the next goal was to deal with Luotlingling, 5 more giants instantly appeared. The number of giants is not large, and 8 giants are already equivalent to an army. Of course. A giant without the power of Devil Fruit is also limited in its strength. Among them, Crane and Bart, who are more elite, have the strength to deal with ordinary cadres of the Don Quixote family. The rest are inferior. In fact, Hyarding already had the reputation of becoming the leader of the giant clan this time. In this case, it would not hurt to draw more giants. But Iori Kangdu believes that 8s are almost the same. What he wants is not as many people as Auntie, but elites. In terms of quality, rolling is enough. On the deck, Yagami Kangdu pondered for a while, and said to Shiryu of the Rain, Saint Muscaret is useless. Contact the people of the world government and exchange it with devil fruits. Understood. Shiryu of the Rain nodded with a chuckle, and then left. 3 days after leaving Elbaf, the world government dialed the phone bug carried by the squad leader and contacted Shiryu of the Rain. What do you want? On the other side of the phone bug, the deep voice of the 5 old stars came. The identity of the Tianlong people is too important. They can't let Holy Muscaret ignore his life and death. So far, the 8 gods pirates haven't killed him, and they can clearly think of what plans they have. But guess what? They have nothing to do. It is impossible to give up Holy Muscaret easily. Even thinking that the last call with Yagami Kingdu was very unpleasant, he had to choose to contact him again. His tone was very reluctant. It's very simple. If you want to save Saint Muscaret, you can trade it with devil fruit. Shiryu of the Rain held the phone bug and spoke calmly. The 5 old stars were silent on the other side. It's not because Yagami Soto wants devil fruit. But Iori Kangdu actually asked a subordinate to talk to them. This is what they think of them. Philo reminds you. 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. Chapter 174. Negotiation. 5 old stars compromise. Shiryu of the Rain, you don't have the right to talk to us yet, Yagami Kangdu. One of the 5 old stars still pressed his anger and asked. Shiryu of the Rain grinned and said, the captain is not available, and he gave me full authority over this matter. If you don't want to talk, then hang up. Damn. A 5 old star slapped on the table, almost unable to control his emotions. Intelligence says they went to Elbaf. A 5 old star said with a cold face. It may be that a new giant crew was recruited in Elbaf, so the devil fruit is needed to continue to build the giant army. Damn. In the eyes of a 5 old star next to the one-brained giant clan, but they wanted to kill Elbaf. But there are many giant lieutenant generals in the navy, and there are also giants in the world government. Destroy Elbaf. The combat power that originally belonged to them will definitely be reversed. And it doesn't have any effect on Yagami Kangdu, it is equivalent to cutting himself. 5 people temporarily hung up the phone bug and discussed with each other. Devil fruits are not precious to the world government, and some Tianlong people even play with them casually. But if it fell into the hands of Yagami Kangdu, it would be completely different. The terrifying combat power of the giant core is known all over the world, and now the whole world knows it. How powerful can the giants have if they eat devil fruits? Nobody knows. However, if you don't agree, Holy Muscaret will definitely do it. Ultimately, the 5 old stars still made a decision. Have you made a decision? Shiryu of the Rain stood leaning against the wall for a while, knowing that the 5 old stars were discussing. But he was not in a hurry, and after a while, he asked with a slight smile. Dealing with the world government is a dangerous thing. Yagami Kangdu's attitude is that it is naturally good to get it, and it doesn't matter if you don't get it, and there is no loss. The 5 old stars have not been urged for a long time, but at this time they can only suppress their anger. One of them said solemnly, yes. Very well, then let's discuss the question of quantity. As a world government, there should be a lot of devil fruits. I believe you can also take out 10, 8. Don't go too far. One of the 5 old stars said in a deep voice, you know how rare devil fruits are. A1 can only trade with you one fruit at most. Shiryu of the Rain chuckled and said, it's hard for me to explain to the captain like this. Muscaru, it won't be great. Are you threatening us? Wu Laoxing said coldly. Shiryu of the Rain said, how come, you are the 5 old stars above? I just wanted to remind you. A1 devil fruit is also acceptable, but it must be of the nature type. Impossible. A 5 old star decisively refused. Ordinary devil fruit is nothing more, it doesn't matter at all. Everyone understands the value of the natural devil fruit. Even a relatively weak natural system is almost invincible for people who are not domineering. If it is a human-type devil fruit, at least 2 are required. 3 for the animal system. How to trade it, you have to weigh it yourself. Of course, it's up to you whether to trade or not. Shiryu of the Rain said with a chuckle, then hung up. Yagami Kanto was standing opposite him, with his back against the wall. Seeing that Shiryu of the Rain hung up the phone, he said, I am quite good at negotiating. Let Yuzhixi stay to talk with Wu Laoxing. On the one hand, he is too lazy to communicate with Wu Laoxing again. Other hand, the 5 old stars are only the power core of the world government on the surface, and there are other existences above the 5 people 5. Subordinate to subordinate, this is reasonable. Shiryu of Rain smiled and said, I don't know if the world government will agree. It doesn't matter. Yagami Kanto doesn't care about that at all. Even if they agreed, the world government would not be able to simply give away the devil fruit. After a while, the phone from the world government side dialed again. This time, it was not the 5 old stars who called, but an official of the world government. He said in a deep voice. Master Wu Laoxing agreed to trade a 1 nature type devil fruit, but we need to specify the trading location. You designate the trading location. If you designate it in Marijoa or the Navy headquarters, then I am afraid it is not a transaction, but an encirclement and suppression. Shiryu of the Rain sneered. The world government official said solemnly, it won't be designated in Marijoa and the Navy headquarters, but it is impossible for you to designate the location. Don't forget that you are pirates, we can't believe it. Shiryu of Rain held down the phone bug and turned to look at Kingdu Yagami. Yagami Kingdu said calmly, tell them, let them designate the sea area at most, and the specific islands are determined by us. Shiryu of the Rain relayed the meaning of Yagami Soto to the past. The world government officials over there fell into silence and did not respond for a long time, as if they had gone to ask the 5 old stars for their opinions. Finally got an answer after a few minutes. Yes. The world government is willing to take out the natural devil fruit to trade, which is unexpected by Yagami Kanto. He thought he would choose 2 superhumans or 3 animal systems. However, this natural system must not be a very strong natural system, this is certain. Otherwise, the world government would never be able to take it out, most of which would be something like smoke fruit. However, the natural system is always the natural system, and it does not need too much development to exert its extremely powerful power. At the beginning of the superhuman system, there are few that can be compared with the natural system. There are many superhumans who have to wake up before they can compete with the natural ones. Ultimately, the world government and Yagami Kingta reached a deal plan, and the location was determined in the New World, Fire Island. This island is not a first-line island close to the Red Earth mainland, but an island that is closer to the base of Naval Division 2. There are 3 volcanoes on the island, which are under high temperature all the year round and are rarely inhabited. Flame Island. Shiryu of the Rain looked at the map, marked the location of Flame Island, and showed a thoughtful look. The sea area given by Yagami Kingdu includes 7 or 8 islands, and this flaming island is one of them. Must have a purpose for choosing this island. The more obvious point is, this island is closer to the naval branch base and the Red Earth continent. Whether there are other ideas is unknown. They also have very little information on Fire Island. Chapter 175. Set up a bureau, kill the lineup. Are you really going to make such a dangerous deal with the world government? Shiryu of Rain's eyes flickered and said, the world government cannot let us easily take away the natural devil fruit. Go, of course. Iori Kingdu said calmly, since the other party has taken out the nature-type devil fruit, why not go, but everyone does not need to go, I can do it alone. For today's Yagami Kanto, with Wangquan Hirazaka in hand, there is no possibility of being surrounded and suppressed. Even if the 3 generals and the marshal made their move, they would still be free to leave. It is very difficult to kill a top combat power. No one can kill Kaido so far, and the difficulty of killing Yagami Kanto is actually even more difficult than Kaido. Are you sure you're alone? Shiryu of the Rain paused for a moment, and looked at Yagami Kengdu with serious eyes. Nina refused. No, the risk is too great. Yagami Kengdu smiled lightly, stretched out his hand and touched Nina's little head, and said, there is bound to be a risk in dealing with the world government, and it's less risky for me to do it alone. If the world government intends to take this opportunity to encircle and suppress the Yagami pirates, it will definitely send 3 or more generals. It is likely to be 2 generals plus 2 alternates for generals, or 1 general, an internal battle force of the world government, and 2 alternates. This situation, for them, the odds of winning are extremely low. Once a fight breaks out, it is normal for casualties to occur even if they can finally be evacuated. Back. If Yagami Aoto goes alone, although the danger will be concentrated on himself, but with Huangquan Hirazaka's ability, there is no way to be surrounded and pursued. Yellow monkeys can only eat farts in the back, not to mention other people. Seeing that Yagami Kengdu had made a decision, the people present looked at each other and didn't speak again. As the captain, Yagami Sudo made a decision, which is naturally irrefutable. Even Nina did not refute at this time. Fire Island. This is an island with 3 volcanoes. One is an extinct volcano, and the other 2 are active, but have erupted only once in recent decades. The atmosphere on the entire island is extremely hot, but there are still vegetation growing here, all of which are strange-looking species. This kind of ghost place, you really know how to pick. On the edge of the island, and at the foot of one of the volcanoes, the alternate general, Cha Dolphin, was holding a wooden box, with a trace of sweat on his forehead. Looking at the sea, and seeing no boats, the T-Dolphin shook his head. After picking up the wooden box and looking at it carefully, gently opened the wooden box. The box contains a strangely shaped devil fruit. Judging from the shape, there is no doubt that it is a natural devil fruit. It is light blue in color, and the patterns on it are like wriggling candles. That. I do not know when, Yagami Kengdu appeared behind the T-Dolphin. Looked calmly at the wood in the T-Dolphin's hand, and said he was looking at the devil fruit in the wooden box. About the appearance of Yashin Kengdu, he has seen the appearance of Yashin Kengdu in advance. Yes, this is it. T-Dolphin turned his head and held one in his mouth. Looking at Yagami Kengdu with a hint of complexity, he sighed softly. Sake of a Tianlong person, is it really worth it to force such a person to the opposite side? Holy Masquerade, can you leave it to me? The T-Dolphin looked at the Tianlong man beside Yagami Kengdu and asked. Count to 3 and throw them away. Come. T-Dolphin nodded, staring calmly at the heart in Yagami Kengdu's hand, and said, at the moment when he counted to 3, he threw out the devil fruit without hesitation. He had already seen the picture of Yagami Kanto throwing his heart in advance. He is very aware of Yagami Kanto's abilities. Even if he wanted to bluff him, he really couldn't do anything about it. Right now, it's just a matter of buying insurance. Devil fruit, Holy Masquerade, the 2 of them each got the conditions they wanted to exchange. Natural devil fruit. Yagami Kengdu looked at the devil fruit in his hand, his eyes flickering slightly. Yagami Soto confirmed that the devil fruit was real. And the natural devil fruits are very similar in shape and can be seen at a glance. The only problem is, what power this devil fruit has, he can't recognize it yet. Sorry. After the T-Pig turned out to be Holy Masquerade, someone quickly appeared from the dark and took him away. At the same time, the T-Dolphin looked at Kengdu of the 8 gods with a complicated expression, and spoke in a deep voice. Whoosh, whoosh. Almost at the moment when his voice fell, 2 figures rushed across from left to right, sandwiching Yagami Kengdu in the middle. One of them turned into a golden light, and it was Admiral Kizaru. The other person is wearing a navy justice cloak with pink cuffs, it is Tautu. Crisis is coming. Flowers dance 1,000 souls. Tautu holds the famous sword Jinpyra, the swordsmanship of the top swordsman. Show up. Its sharp edge is about to smash the nearby void, and it is basically a full shot. Kizaru on the other side also used its most extreme speed to shoot a series of dense lasers towards Yagami Kangdu, blocking Yagami Kangdu's entire body and all the hiding areas. But, facing the blows from Tautu and Kizaru, Yagami Kangdu raised his hand unhurriedly. Boom, boom, boom. A violent roar exploded in the air. I saw Yagami Kangdu put the natural devil fruit in his pocket, and the whole person walked out of the explosion area lightly, like a phantom. From beginning to end, Yagami Soto didn't show any strength to resist swordsmanship. And laser. The violent roar that came from the void was completely swordsmanship, caused by collision with the laser. Viewed from the direction Momotu and Kizaru were in, the attack by Momotu and Kizaru seemed to have passed through the body of Yagami Soto, but instead turned into swordsmanship. A duel with lasers. And looking from the direction where Tautu and Kizaru are located, the Yagami Kangdu in front of them disappeared out of thin air. Ripples in the space continued, and then Yagami Kangdu disappeared. The ability to trouble. T-Dolphin had already foreseen this scene, but he still showed a headache. Because even if he knew in advance that this would happen, he couldn't think of a way to crack it. In desperation, the T-Dolphin could only attack the Yagami Kangdu. But Yagami Kangdu still ignored the T-Dolphin's attack, and just strolled towards the coast. Regardless of swordsmanship or laser, bombardment on his body cannot cause the slightest impact. Ice Age. Just as Yagami Kangdu walked to the shore, a low and cold shout came. The entire sea was frozen in an instant, turning into a vast ice surface, and the ice was spreading towards the shore. Green Pheasant appears. Fei Lu reminds you. 3 things to read, collect, recommend, and share. Chapter 176. Walking in the courtyard, the Peach Rabbit erupts. 2 incumbent generals, 2 alternate generals, and the 4 top combat powers of the naval headquarters are gathered here. What is the concept that this place will be bombed on the spot? Even if Kaido is here, he will be suppressed and unable to move. Even a Whitebeard would have to suffer in the face of 4 general-level combat power. The condensed ice layer was wrapped in an extremely deep cold, and in an instant, he came to the feet of Yagami Kangdu. But still haven't had any effect on Yagami Kangdu. Yagami Kangdu just walked around under the indiscriminate bombardment of the 4 of them, stepping on the frozen sea. His face did not fluctuate, he didn't even have eyelids. Lift it up. How is it possible? A look of shock appeared in the eyes of the blue pheasant. According to the last report, Yagami Soto has some kind of extremely strong defense. But in the face of 4 general-level combat power, it is like a walk in a leisurely garden, which is too exaggerated. This scene also caused serious discomfort to Tautu and Kyabu. Obviously, seeing the domineering look, you can feel that the 8 gods Kangdu is there. But no matter what attack, they can't hit all of them, so how can I hit? Boom, boom. Chingzi creates ice walls or huge icicles. The bombardment on Yagami Kangdu was like hitting a phantom, unable to stop Yagami Kangdu's footsteps at all. Hey, what are you kidding? He released several big moves in a row, and after finding that it had no effect, he finally stopped. While the pupils in the eyes shrank, there was also a look of shock that could not be concealed. 8-foot Chonguyu. The yellow monkey flew to the sky, and the dense 8-foot Chongu jade fell towards the 8-god Kangdu. The frozen sea continued to shatter, and countless ice cubes burst. But Yagami Kangdu completely ignored his existence and walked out of the laser bombardment area under everyone's attention. It's just a joke. The yellow monkey turned into a golden light and fell on the ice in the distance, still with a hint of wretchedness in his tone. But there was a faint trembling, and his heart was obviously terrified. Yagami Kangdu did not attack, and walked forward calmly. Of course he has the qualifications to fight with these top combat power, but it is completely unnecessary. He has also tried to explode the peak combat power, but will be suppressed by the power of the world of the pirate world. With the ability he can display now, under the siege of these people, I am afraid it will be difficult to fight. But Huang Quan Hirazaka is not restricted. The attacks of those people combined with the power of the gods, can be instantly transferred to another dimension. In the eyes of others, the attack of the two admirals of the Navy was regarded as nothing. They walked into the distance under their helpless gaze. If this matter spreads to the sea, it will be enough to shock the world. How could this happen? Tautu clenched the hilt of the sword tightly and gritted his teeth slightly. 4. A swordsman, watching the enemy look at her and walking past her like this is undoubtedly a huge damage to his sword heart and will. Unwilling, she condensed the sword will. Armed domineering condensed on the sword's edge, and an astonishing wave spread from the sword's edge. Her whole person seems to have turned into a sword that can penetrate the clouds. Under the influence of Yagami Kengdu's psychology and influence, her sword even had a sign of breaking through her former self, revealing a swordsmanship that was even stronger than Shiryu of Rain. Heart sword flow, cherry blossom tribulation. Whoosh! Peach Rabbit's figure finally flashed suddenly. The moment the sword stabbed out, it seemed to have crossed a certain threshold, perfectly condensing with the domineering aura of armament. With pink sakura petals pierced into Yagami Soto's heart. Unfortunately, it was still unable to break through the blockade of Wonkwan Hirazaka. It's pretty strong. Yagami Kengdu looked at Tautu indifferently, and spoke with some admiration. Just a little bit, Tautu will be able to break through the space blockade of Wonkwan Hirazaka. Ding! Yagami Kengdu was covered in red steam, raised his finger lightly, and flicked his finger at Tautu's blade. The sky-shattering sword just now took too much of Tautu's strength. Under the bullet of Yagami Kengdu, Tautu was easily knocked into the air. Childish mouth. Tiankong Cloud Sword. Qingzi and Kizaru noticed that Tautu had broken through Yagami Kanto's bizarre defense, and thought it was an opportunity, so they joined forces to attack without hesitation. But Huang Quan Hirazaka finally made them despair. Joint attack is useless. There is no dead end. The T-Dolphin had already encountered this scene, so he did not participate in the joint siege. It can be seen from the fact that Tautu's blow can break through the strange defense of Yagami Kengdu. This ability of Yagami Kengdu is not an absolute defense that cannot be broken through. But there is no doubt that in order to break through this defense, a very high-quality armament is required. Or, it was the extreme swordsmanship that Momotu had just done that almost broke through himself. Apart from that, no attack could break Yagami Soto's defense. Because Qingzi Kyabu is a natural type, it is difficult to rely on the high-quality armament color in the attack of the natural type. And he himself, because he is good at seeing, hearing, and sensuality, is not good at training in the aspect of armed sex. If only Garp was here. T-Dolphin sighed in his heart. In fact, Garp was notified of this encirclement and suppression. But Garp made it clear that he did not want to be involved in the matter of Yagami Soto. Qingzi Kyabu did not give up, and continued to attack Yagami Kanto, trying to create a fighter for Momotu. And Tautu, under the influence of Yagami Kengdu, after vaguely breaking through the limit, was also surging with fighting spirit, and continued to attack. Now, in terms of pure attack, she is even 1% better than Qingzi Kizaru, and her overall strength has fully reached the standard of Qingzi Kizaru. Boom, boom, boom. Qingzi and Kizaru did not give up their attack. Even if they realized that the attack was ineffective, they continued to attack. There is no absolutely ineffective attack in this world. It's like the armament of a strong man can easily block the artillery fire, but this does not mean that the artillery fire is completely ineffective. It is still possible to consume their domineering arrogance and consume their physical strength. And since Tautu was able to break through Iori Kengdu's bizarre defense, it showed that Iori Kengdu's defense was not completely incomprehensible. Under the fierce bombardment of Qingzi Kyabu, Tautu's whole person entered a strange state. Mind was completely united with the blade of the sword, and after a 2-second pause, she held the hilt of the sword with both hands. An instant, an unprecedented sharp light suddenly bloomed in his eyes. Om! A sword stronger than before surged up. She suddenly raised her head and looked at Kengdu, the 8 gods. Her pupils seemed to have turned into sword lights. Chapter 177. The four generals will fail, and the encirclement and suppression will fail. Heart sword flow. Flash. Almost instantly, she was bullied into the presence of Yagami Kangdu. The blade in his hand fell sharply, and the sword pressure and the armament look domineering perfectly blended. When it touches the space of ripples, it suddenly becomes, slow down, as if cut into a mess. Although somewhat difficult, this sword once again broke through the blockade. Ding! Facing Momotu's breakthrough again, Yagami Kangdu flicked his finger and bounced the blade away again. At the same time, she looked at her twice, and her eyes flickered slightly. Is it a breakthrough in the battle? I didn't expect this kind of thing to happen to me. However, that's it. Let's go. Yagami Kanto's eyes were always calm. At the moment when Kizaru and Chingzi's attacks stopped, he unleashed his divine power and turned to appear thousands of meters away. Tautu continues to break through her own limits and continue to show operations, which may capsize in the gutter. There are many people with special abilities in this world, and no one should be underestimated. Even today's Yagami Kangdu couldn't fight against four generals at the same time. Not to mention, under the siege of four people, quickly kill a general. But the combination of Shinwei and Wangquan Hirazaka has surpassed the general sense of time and space ninjutsu. At least in the pirate world, I have never heard of anyone who can use their abilities to break through. Whoosh! The yellow monkey turned into a golden light and tried to catch up. But as soon as he reached the position of Yagami Kangdu crossed the space again. After several times in a row, it was already a long way from Chingzi Tautu and the others. As soon as Kizaru thought of the fear of being dominated by Yagami Kangdu, he didn't dare to catch up alone, so he could only return helplessly. The four of them are back together, and no one speaks. Looking at each other, except Tautu was a little depressed. The expressions of the other three were also a little unnatural. Four people and four ambush, originally intended to encircle the Yashin pirates. As a result, there was only one Yagami Kangdu who came, and he calmly escaped from the siege of the four of them. No, it should be said that he swaggered away. Sure enough, it has grown into a big trouble. Chingji rubbed his brows and opened his mouth with a headache. The frontal attack of Whitebeard's shaking fruit is unstoppable, Kaido's undead body is unstoppable, and the redhead's domineering is enough to fight against all devil fruit abilities. These, the emperors who ruled the sea, each has a special point of each. The troubles of Yagami Kangdu are even more than these. The emperor. An unbreakable space barrier. Move freely in and out of space. Even if surrounded by four general-level combat power, they can retreat calmly. In any way, the existence of Yagami Kangdu is more troublesome than Kaido and Whitebeard. Just when the atmosphere of four people is dull. Some of the navy stationed in the distance arrived late, looking at the positions of Chingzi and Kizaru from a distance. Over there. Is the fight over so soon? Looking at the frozen sea, the Major General spoke in shock. The Lieutenant General next to him narrowed his eyes slightly and said, "It seems that there is only one person from the Eight Gods Pirates. It's a reasonable thing. If there is only one person, facing the Tautucha Dolphin and the Chingzi Yellow Monkey, it is normal for a lineup to be besieged by such a lineup." Numerous navies quickly surrounded it, and some people took out the stone shackles of the sea tower. However, as the distance got closer, those lieutenant generals and major generals were a little stunned to discover. On the frozen sea, there were only four figures, including Chingzi Kaiabu, and no other figures. Chingzi turned around, looked at the many navy runners running over, and said in a low voice, "Let's close the team." "General." A lieutenant general looked at Chingzi in amazement and said, "The murderer just now. Can't you see it? Run away." The T-Dolphin blew a puff of smoke at the lieutenant general angrily, interrupting his words. Numerous navies stopped one after another, and when they heard the words of the T-Dolphin, they all showed stunned and incredible expressions. Run away. Under such a terrifying lineup, Chingzi Kayabusa and T-Dolphin Peach Rabbit ran away. What a joke. With an expression of disbelief on his face, a major general spoke out almost subconsciously. The T-Dolphin glared at the major general, but was too lazy to speak anymore, so he turned his head and left. And Tautu and the others were not in the mood to speak, and their expressions were all a little low. Seeing the appearance of Chado, Qingzi, and the others, many navies were stunned. Even if you don't believe it, there seems to be only one answer at this moment: the enemy is really gone. Under the encirclement and suppression of the four generals, he walked away. A few days later, the world government has updated the bounty order, and the bounty of Yagami Kingdu has been raised to 2.5 billion Bailey, and Shiryu of Rain has been raised to 1.5 billion, and the others are basically unchanged. 2.5 billion bounties. That's a terrifyingly high amount. And with the update of the bounty order, what happened on the Island of Flames, after all, spread on the sea. Few people know the contents of the transaction between Yagami Soto and the world government. Why the 8 gods Kingdu appeared on the Flame Island, few people know what happened. But what countless people know is that with the 2 generals in the navy, plus 2 candidates for generals, and an ambush, Yagami Kingdu forcibly broke out of the siege by himself. In the face of 4 generals, he can still retreat. Of the leaders of many forces when they heard the news was full of disbelief. It simply exceeded the limit of imagination. But you don't believe it, the fact is. So, it is irrefutable. No one knows the process of the battle, and no one knows how Yagami Kingdu got away. But from this day on, except Kaido, the undead beast, and the strongest man in the world, Whitebeard. On the sea, another monster appeared that was able to retreat calmly in the face of the 4 generals. Yagami Kingdu failed. What the hell did the navy do? In the Holy Land Marijoa, the 5 old stars were extremely depressed when they learned the news of the failure of the navy's encirclement and suppression. However, after listening to the report in detail, all 5 of them understood that Qingzi and the others could not be blamed for this. Space-like abilities. What kind of devil fruit is it that can develop such a terrifying ability? Why have I never heard of it before? The sword-wielding Wu Laoxing rubbed his brows, only to feel a dull pain in his head. If it is a space-type ability, then there is really no other way except the same space-type ability, or the arrogance of the armed color that has been cultivated to the extreme. Peach Rabbit's swordsmanship improved again, but the only good news. A 5 old star sighed, picked up the cup on the coffee table and took a sip of tea. Tautu's own strength is not much different from Qingzi and others, and now the swordsmanship. Further improvement, it is enough to be qualified for the position of Admiral of the Navy. As a woman, she can use swordsmanship. Reaching this level is not easy. In history, the position of the world's largest swordsman has never been taken by a woman. Peach Rabbit undoubtedly has some hope. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 178, Provocation. Pay the price you deserve. But how should Iori Kingdu deal with it? One of the 5 old stars still turned the topic back. This is a problem they have to face today. They also considered before, let Yagami Kingdu and the other 4 emperors join together. But now, no matter how you look at it, you can only admit that the growth of the 8 gods pirates has gradually surpassed the other 4 emperors. That is to say, in the future battles, the 8 gods pirates are likely to be the victors among the pirates. The person. Do you want them out? A 5 old star suggested. The 5 old stars next to him hesitated, let them be dispatched. But what you said is that you should report the matter to Lord Yimu. Just as the 5 old stars were discussing, a world government official suddenly knocked on the door. Lord 5 old stars. It's a call from the Yagami pirates. Hearing the report outside, the 5 old stars looked at each other. 4 of them didn't speak, and they didn't really want to answer. But the last person still said in a deep voice, come in. Listen to what he has to say. The government officials from the outside world heard the words, they pushed open the door and placed a phone bug on the coffee table in front of the 5 old stars. The voice of Shiryu of the Rain came from the phone bug. Unfortunately, the operation to encircle our captain failed. You shouldn't have escaped a siege, so you are so naive that you come to show off your power. The 5 old stars were not angry, one of them said indifferently. Shiryu of Rain smiled and said, "No, it's not what you think. I said it a long time ago, if you don't follow the rules of the transaction, the situation of Saint Muscarad will not be very good." Hearing Shiryu of the Rain, the 5 old stars present had a bad feeling. The 5 old star who belonged to the Don Quixote family frowned and said, "What are you going to do?" Do. Shiryu of the Rain didn't say anything, just hung up the phone, and there was a busy tone. The other side. Wu Laoxing saw that the phone bug was hung up. They all vaguely sensed something was wrong. Sure enough. Just minutes after the phone bug was hung up, an emergency call went straight to a body-carrying phone bug in their pocket. A 5 old star suppressed his face, slowly took out the phone bug, and chose to answer. Listening to the news from the other side of the phone bug, the faces of the 5 people present were getting darker and darker. The atmosphere was depressing. Damn bastard. Whose surname was Don Quixote eventually lived. A slap slapped the table in front of him, and the coffee table made a clicking sound, shattered into pieces of glass, and splashed everywhere. The other side. On the seas of the New World, 2 giant ships sailed side by side. On one of the ships, there lived Yagami Aoto, Nina and others. In addition, Helding, the cadre, and the 2 giants Gears, who were designated as special cadres by Yagami Soto. The other big ship lived Rhodes, Goldbags and other giants. The current 8th God's pirates, Shiryu of the Rain and others are all cadres, and Hyerding, the leader of the giant, is also one of the cadres. And Gelts are defined as special crew members, and can also be considered as special cadres. Whether it is the childlike fruit of sugar, or the healing fruit of Gelts, the effects are extraordinary and belong to existences that need protection. Other ordinary giants are ordinary crew members. Of course. Such as Rhodes and Goldbags who initially followed Yagami Soto had a higher status than other giants. On one of the ships, in a certain hall, Yagami Soto took out the nature-type devil fruit from his pocket and threw it at Nina not far away. Pat. Nina stretched out her hand to take the devil fruit, a thought flashed in her jet-black pupils. This doesn't seem to be a natural devil fruit. Yagami Kangdu looked at Nina in surprise. If he remembered correctly, this shape and pattern should be natural. Could it be that the world government used a similar-looking devil fruit to play tricks? Nina said a little hesitantly. How should I put it? The name of this devil fruit should be called slime fruit. It is difficult to define whether it should be classified as a special superhuman department or a natural department. Hearing Nina's words, the corners of Yagami Kang's mouth twitched slightly. He was impressed by this sticky fruit, and was still very impressed. It came from Toripal, the top cadre of the Don Quixote family. That, the snotling used to disgust him. This fruit can indeed turn the body into a sticky state, similar to the glutinous fruit of Katakuri. Belongs to the special superhuman type, which is similar to the natural type. I don't really want this sticky fruit, so after Toripal's death, he didn't let Kaku and others pay attention to the news of the sticky fruit. Unexpectedly, it fell into the hands of the world government, and was taken over by the world government to make a deal with him. What's wrong? Nina looked at Yagami Kangdu strangely, and felt that Yagami Kangdu was not very interested. Nothing. Yagami Kanto shook his head and regained his calm. Although this fruit is a little disgusting, but that also varies from person to person. Toripal likes to create a disgusting state, and under normal circumstances, he can completely maintain his normal form. And the power of this fruit is also good, and it has properties similar to glue. Can be controlled and sticky, and it can explode when it encounters fire, causing massive damage. It's not unacceptable. Today's giant core does need a limited type of devil fruit. Form a more complete group to exert more power. The ownership of the slimy fruit was finally given to the giant elite warrior Crane. After possessing the power to control the giant, the possibility of destroying the thief is already greater. However, it is not the decisive factor. Speak up. Thieves are not as simple as they seem. The 4 stars are arranged from high to low, and in a 1-to-1 situation, they are inferior to Shiryu of the Rain and Helding. But more than one person. And the thief's chef. Longbread is not a simple character either. One move can turn a huge castle comparable to the size of a town into a cake snack. He is the first follower and the one who knows all the secrets of the thief. Weak its strength is, most of them still have the level of a general. Each of the 4 emperors has the strengths of each of the 4 emperors. Like Whitebeard's invincible strength, Kaido's immortal body, and the thief's strength is better than his enormous power. Chapter 179. Find out the trace, the person who has been looking for a long time. To deal with thieves, there is no need to make plans. Yagami Kangdu said calmly, the only thing to consider is Kaido and the world government who may intervene. But as long as the fight is over fast enough, it won't be a problem. If, as you said, Captain, the thief still has a head chef hidden in it, which is comparable to the combat effectiveness of the 3 disasters of the General Star, it will have a great impact on the battle situation. Shiryu of the Rain looked thoughtful. It is indeed a problem. Nina muttered. It's no problem to destroy a General Star in advance. Yagami Kangdu spoke calmly. Although it's a bit shameless to sneak attack on a general or something. But if he sneaks in first and makes a sneak attack, except Katakuri, who can predict the future, other generals will suffer heavy losses and lose their combat effectiveness even if they are not killed in one move. A raid. Everyone present was thoughtful. Victory or defeat has never been despicable, not despicable. So people don't care at all. As for the giants. Fighting, but as Yorulu once said. Not human, but a demon in human skin. No sympathy and nobility are needed to deal with demons. However, just when Yagami Kangta was going to make a decision, the voice of a phone bug suddenly rang from Nina. Nina walked out of the room with the same expression, and took out the phone bug to answer. After a minute, she returned to the hall, and said to Yagami Kangdu, the person you are looking for has information. Oh. When the 8 gods Kangdu heard the words, his eyes flashed. Who is the person he is looking for? There is no doubt that he is a powerful warrior, a character who can make the overall strength of the 8 gods pirates skyrocket. Fujitora smiled. Of course. Today's Fujitora has not yet joined the navy, nor has the codename, Fujitora. His name is Yi Xiao, and there is no doubt how strong he is. Even Shiryu of Rain, who is now almost the same as the general, may not be able to beat Fujitora. And, compared to the rest of the Iori pirates, Fujitora is a character with a sense of justice. Yagami Aoto doesn't like to do things for justice, but these things can be done by Fujitora. The Yagami pirates are nominally a pirate group, but Yagami Kangdu's goal is not the 4 emperors, nor the pirate king, but to overthrow the world government and establish a new regime. So, positive characters are still necessary. With the strength of a Navy admiral. Not the king of big stomachs, not getting lost, not seeing beautiful women with nosebleeds. Such a crew member is undoubtedly the most suitable at present. The first half of the Great Route. Hearing Nina's announcement of the location, Soto Yagami and Shiryu of the Rain took out the chart and determined the location. The place where Fujitora appeared was not in the New World, but in the first half of the Great Route. In the first half, and it's a hemisphere away from them. Are you going? After looking at the chart, Nina asked the Yagami Kanto. Yagami Kangdu thought for a while, but made a decision. Go. About Fujitora through various channels, he is sure to let Fujitora board the ship. For the fighting power of Fujitora, it is worth a trip. Once Fujitora joins, killing the thief will no longer be. What a headache. He will also completely own a territory, and he will no longer have to run around. After giving the order, Yagami Soto left the hall. It seems that the captain is very concerned about that. Ye smile. Shiryu of the Rain sat in the corner, took out a match, slid out the flame, lit a cigar, and took a sip. Although Yagami Aoto did not reveal the complete information about Fujitora, how could it be inferred that this little-known and never-heard-of Isho possessed extraordinary combat power? The first half of the Great Route. An island. In a noodle shop, a blind man wearing a purple cloak and a black belt is sitting on a wooden bench and eating noodles. There is a wooden walking stick next to it, and his feet are walking on clogs. Doesn't look sloppy, but it's also not glamorous and unremarkable. There is no doubt about his identity. It is Fujitora who will participate in the world recruitment in a few years and be promoted to general in a few years without changing the historical trajectory. Today is the 17th year of the Great Pirate Age, and it is very close to the 18th year of the Great Pirate Age. 22 years of the Great Pirate Era, and Ace went to sea in the 19th year. Checkout. After Fujitora ate all the noodles, only the bottom of the bowl was left to drink the noodle soup, and then he stood up. He slowly took out a banknote from his pocket, groped it twice, and after judging the face value of the banknote, handed the banknote to the owner of the noodle shop. The boss smiled and gave Fujitora change, handed it to Fujitora, and said, "Come on, take it and walk slowly." Fujitora has been eating noodles with him for 10 days, and he is a frequent visitor in a short period of time. Fujitora smiled honestly and put the change in his pocket. Pointing at the ground with a wooden stick, he slowly walked out of the noodle shop and walked slowly along the side of the street. However, just when he walked into a somewhat remote and dark street, a dozen people suddenly came out from all directions and surrounded him in the middle. Fujitora's expression didn't change, and he continued to walk forward calmly. The wooden stick touched the ground little by little, and finally touched a person's foot. He touched the back of his head and said apologetically, "I am very sorry, the old man is blind, can you let me go a little?" "Of course you can." The man spoke lightly, but there was a malicious smile on his face. While getting out of the way, he lifted his foot and stumbled on Fujitora's leg. However, Fujitora walked normally, but as if he saw it, he just crossed over. The man was slightly surprised, but smiled at random. Suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed Fujitora's shoulders and hung it on Fujitora's body, saying, "I said, if I remember correctly, you've won a lot in the casino this month. You're really lucky." Although Fujitora didn't go to the casino every day, he went to the casino more than a dozen times in more than a month. Although he won't win much every time, he always wins a part and leaves. To be stared at because of the number of times. Yes, luck is indeed good during this time. Fujitora touched the back of his head and smiled, but was not angry at the other party's rude behavior. More than a dozen people with fierce faces next to them all looked at each other and smiled, looking at Fujitora with a bit of fiery in their eyes. Usually they don't just find someone to start with, they naturally have to ask carefully before they start. After some inquiries, his eyes were locked on Fujitora. In their eyes, a blind man like Fujitora who can't see is the best way to deal with it. Without any influence, a loner guy is simply a fat sheep that has nothing to say. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend, and share. Chapter 180, General Who, Fujitora, smiles. Hey, yeah. Who held Fujitora's shoulders in a dignified manner slowly let go of his arms. The other hand suddenly grabbed Fujitora's collar and said, "So, our luck is also very good. The eyes are out of sight, and if the leg were to break again, it would be miserable enough. So to avoid that, how about paying a little Bailey for your legs?" The person next to him grinned and pulled out a saber with a clang, deliberately letting Fujitora hear the sound. NT change, but his head sank slightly. It's also a blessing to ignore things. There are too many filthy and despicable people in this world. Almost. In an instant, a strange force swayed away. The young man holding his collar suddenly changed his face. I just felt that a force of gravity was suddenly pressing on my body, and my whole body seemed to be carrying a heavy mountain, and my bones were rattling. Inexplicable, he tugged at Fujitora's collar, but he still couldn't resist the force. Were cracks on the ground under his feet, and the whole person was crushed to the ground. Blood spilled from his mouth, and he couldn't even struggle. The dozen or so people next to him didn't feel anything unusual, and when they noticed that their companion fell, they thought he was teasing Fujitora. It wasn't until he found that blood was spilling from the other party's mouth that he realized that something was wrong. "Hello. Miley, what's wrong with you acting too much?" Shock of a group of people, their expressions finally changed, and they all drew their weapons. "What did you do?" Someone looked at Fujitora vigilantly and asked in a stern voice at Fujitora. Fujitora didn't answer, but leaned on a wooden staff. Touching the ground with a wooden stick, he walked forward and stepped over the fallen murderer. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the people around him changed. Someone's eyes flashed fiercely, the musket aimed at Fujitora's head, and shot violently. Bang! A bullet burst out and shot at Fujitora's head. But, shockingly, the speed of this bullet suddenly slowed down when it reached a 1'0" area around Fujitora. Was as if he had been subjected to some terrifying force and could no longer move forward. Finally, with a thud, it fell to the ground. Fujitora stopped. He slowly picked up the wooden stick and held one end of the wooden stick. What the hell is going on? What did that guy do? Seeing that the bullet was actually stopped and dropped, everyone showed a shocked expression. Dripped from his forehead. And just when their hearts were shaking, they didn't know for a while whether they should continue to attack. Clear footsteps suddenly came from a distance. Step, step, step. At the end of the street, a figure slowly walked over. He was wearing a white trench coat, tall, but his face was very sunny and handsome. A bunch of stupid scumbags. Yagami Kangdu walked over slowly, and glanced at the murderer who was crushed to the ground with a flat gaze. Hearing Yagami Kangdu's words, the eyes of more than 10 people present shifted their foreheads, and when they saw the appearance of Yagami Kangdu, one of them changed dramatically. You. A look of horror appeared on his face. Even if Fujitora gave the bullet, he didn't show such an expression. Not only was the cold sweat dripping from the forehead, but the whole back was cold. The people next to them reacted a beat slower, but after they reacted, their faces changed drastically. All sucked in a breath of cold air, only to feel their legs go weak for a while. The fifth emperor, Iori Kangdu. Someone said the name with a trembling voice, and the whole person sat on the ground. Fujitora paused for a while, ignoring the dozen or so murderers around him. Head towards the direction where Yagami Kangdu came, and opened a pair of eyes with only the whites of his eyes but no pupils. First meeting. Yagami Aoto took another 2 steps forward, stopped 3 meters away from Fujitora, and smiled faintly at Fujitora. Encountered some nasty things that made your excellency laugh. Fujitora slowly put down the wooden stick and smiled kindly at Yagami Kanto. 8 gods. Kangdu smiled lightly. In this world, how can you avoid all the filth and filth? Even if you close your eyes, you will always encounter it, and it is very difficult to stay out of it. Listen to the conversation between Yagami Soto and Fujitora. The more than 10 people next to them did not relax because the two ignored them, but the panic in their hearts became stronger and stronger. That blind man, he can actually talk to Yagami Kangta. It's like a ghost, isn't it just an ordinary blind man? A group of people all froze in place, and some people have already thought of running away. But the legs are like lead filled with lead, and it is difficult to lift them. The whole person seems to have become a clay plastic wooden body, and can only watch Iori Soto and Fujitora talking to the side. Ah! Hearing Yagami Soto's words, Fujitora sighed. Indeed, as Yagami Kangdu said, in this era, it is unavoidable to avoid it. This is the era of the great pirates, a chaotic era in which countless pirates and villains are rampant. Even though there are world governments and navies to maintain order, but only within a certain range. The world has collapsed. But acting like your excellency will only make the chaos worse. Fujitora spoke slowly. With the news of Yagami Kangdo, he often pays attention to the news of Yagami Kangdo. Although I didn't deliberately inquire about it, the contents of the newspapers were basically known. He is also very clear about what Yagami Kangdo has done along the way. He is not clumsy. Contrary to his simple and honest appearance, everything in his heart is clear. Yagami Kangdo would appear here, and he took the initiative to find him. He did not think it was a coincidence. Yagami Kangdo's current identity represents too many things that are too heavy. If it wasn't a coincidence, he could generally guess what Yagami Kangdo wanted to do. The world government, is it God? Yagami Aoto smiled lightly, and instead of answering Fujitora's words, he asked a question instead. Fujitora's hand holding the wooden staff tightened slightly. Yagami Kanto looked at Fujitora and said slowly, "They are not gods, they just happened to meet and became the rulers of the world, that's all. The world, as you can see, is sick." Yagami Kangdo stretched out his hand from his cloak, spread it out gently, and said, "Using the methods of the world government, the condition will only get worse. If you want to be cured, you can only change everything and solve the problem from the root." Fujitora understood the meaning of Yagami Sudo. My heart was also shaken by the idea of Yagami Kanto.